Hello, everybody. This is Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. Part 3, Chapter 9. Darya Alexandrovna, with a platok on her head and surrounded by all the little flock of bathers, was just drawing near the house when the coachman called out, "Here comes some barin. Pokrovsky, it looks like." To her great joy, Darya Alexandrovna saw that it was indeed Levin's well-known form in grey hat and grey overcoat. She was always glad to see him, but now she was particularly delighted because he saw her in all her glory, and no one could appreciate her triumph better than Levin. When he caught sight of her, it seemed to him that he saw the personification of the family happiness of his dreams. "You're like a brooding hen, Darya Alexandrovna. Ach, how glad I am," said she, extending her hand. "Glad, but you did not let me know. My brother's staying with me, and I had a little note from Stiva telling me you were here." "From Stiva?" repeated Dolly, astonished. "Yes, he wrote me that you were in the country, and thought that you would allow me to be of some use to you," said Levin, and suddenly, even while speaking, he became confused, and walked in silence by the Linaika, pulling off and biting linden twigs as he went. It occurred to him that Darya Alexandrovna would doubtless find it painful to have a neighbor offer her the assistance which her husband should have given. In fact, Darya Alexandrovna was displeased at the way in which Stepan Arkadyevitch had thrust his domestic difficulties upon a stranger. She perceived that Levin felt this, and felt grateful to him for his tact and delicacy. "Of course, I understood that it was a pleasant way of telling me that you would be glad to see me, and I was glad. Of course, I imagine that you, a city dame, find it savage here, and if I can be the least use to you, I'm wholly at your service." "Oh, no," said Dolly. "At first it was rather hard, but now everything's running beautifully. I owe it all to my old nurse," she added, pointing at Matryona Filimonovna, who, perceiving that they were speaking of her, gave Levin a pleasant, friendly smile. She knew him, and knew that he would be a splendid husband for the Baruishna, as she called Kitty, and thus felt an interest in him. "Will you get in? We'll squeeze up a little," said she. "No, I'll walk. Children, which of you will run with me to get ahead of the horses?" The children were very slightly acquainted with Levin, and did not remember where they had seen him, but they had none of that strange feeling of timidity and aversion which children are often blamed for showing in the presence of their elders. The most shrewd and experienced man may easily become the dupe of dissimulation, but even the most innocent child seems to know it by intuition or instinct, though it be most carefully hidden. Whatever faults Levin had, he could not be accused of lack of sincerity, and moreover, the children felt well inclined to him on account of the expressions of good-will that they had seen on their mother's face. The two eldest instantly accepted his invitation, and ran with him as they would have gone with their nurse, or Miss Hull, or their mother. Lily also wanted to go with him, so he set her on his shoulder and began to run. Don't be frightened, Darya Alexandrovna," he said, laughing gaily. "I won't hurt her or let her fall." And when she saw his strong, agile, and at the same time prudent and careful movements, Dolly felt reassured and followed his course with pleasure. There in the country, with the children and with Darya Alexandrovna, with whom he felt thoroughly in sympathy, Levin entered into that boy-like, happy frame of mind which was not unusual with him, and which Darya Alexandrovna especially admired in him. He played with the children and taught them gymnastic exercises. He jested with Miss Hull in his broken English, and he told Darya Alexandrovna of his undertakings in the country. After dinner, Darya Alexandrovna, sitting alone with him on the balcony, began to speak of Kitty. "Did you know? Kitty is coming here to spend the summer with me." "Indeed," replied Levin, confused, and instantly, in order to change the subject, he added, "Then I shall send you 2 cows, shall I? And if you insist on paying and have no scruples, then you may give me 5 roubles a month." "No, excuse me, we shall get along." "No, then am I going to look at your cows, and with your permission I will give directions about feeding them, All depends on that. And Levin, in order not to hear anything more about Kitty, of whom more than anything else he was anxious to hear, explained to Darya Alexandrovna the whole theory of the proper management of cows, so systematized that cows became mere machines for the conversion of so much fodder into milk, and so on. He was afraid that his peace of mind, so painfully won, might be destroyed. Yes, but in order to do all of this, there must be someone to superintend it. And who is there? Asked Darya Alexandrovna, not quite convinced. Now that her domestic regime was satisfactory, through Matryona Filimonovna, she had no desire to make any changes. Moreover, she had no faith in Levin's knowledge about rustic management. His reasonings about a cow being merely a machine to produce milk were suspicious. It seemed to her that such theories would throw housekeeping into discord. It even seemed to her that they might be dangerous, and that it was sufficient to do as Matryona Filimonovna did, to give the 2 cows more fodder, and to prevent the cook from carrying dishwater from the kitchen to the dairy. This was clear, but the theories about meal and ensilage and fodder were not clear, but dubious. And the principal point was, she wanted to talk about Kitty.